I'm joined by Jaggi Vasudev Sadhguru, known by many names, healer, preacher, modern-day guru, yogi, mystic. But he is the man principally behind Isha Foundation, which is running thousands of centers across the world teaching meditation and yoga to a lot of people. So let me begin this interview by asking you, what does yoga stand for you?
The word yoga means union. When we say union, we are talking about an individual human being capable of experiencing life in a way that is universal. Or in other words, experiencing life beyond the boundaries of physical body, because this is a physical body that we have accumulated over a period of time. It is not a solid state, it's something that we are accumulating on a daily basis and dropping something out of it. So these boundaries are very illusory and sensory in nature. If you transcend your sensory limits, you experience yourself as a limitless possibility. So when you experience that, that's called yoga. One who experiences that is referred to as a yogi. But then why would anybody want to know this? If you want to understand the fundamentals of everything that a human being is experiencing in terms of variety of struggles that they go through, is essentially this boundary, you versus the rest. If there's only you and you, there's no problem in the world.
Is yoga a set of exercise? Is it political? Is it religious? How do you define it?
It is all of it and it's not any of those things, in the sense, is there a physical aspect involved? Of course, because you have a body, you have to exercise it. But the exercise is not only on the physical level. As you can exercise, see if a person who's well exercised walks there, you can see, just by looking at the gait, you know that this is a well exercised physical body. Similarly, there can be a well exercised mind, there can be well exercised energy system. And accordingly in yoga, there are different types of systems for physicality, for your psychological space, and also the fundamental energies in the system. All of these can be exercised so that a human being can be brought to an ultimate possibility.
Now, if I look at people who are exercising here, they're experts in their own system. I see them as doing as a set of exercise, kriyas, or different mudras, postures. Some people would say that yoga is like any other exercise which is for well-being of the platform, which is body. So how do you redefine yoga in your Isha Foundation?
It's not a redefinition. It is about fixing the distortions that have happened in recent times, because unfortunately for a lot of people, yoga, the yoga that they know is a rebound from the American coast. If you look at this tree, if you don't know what's a tree, you think it's just standing. No, right now it's preparing to throw out a whole lot of flowers and fragrance out. You just watch in a few days what will come out of it. Similarly, a human being, what he or she seems to be doing externally is one thing, but what they're preparing within themselves is a completely different dimension.
Yoga is, I would say, back in the political narrative. And there are two questions I would ask you. One is about the comeback of yoga, but that's later in the interview. But in your opinion, how's the idea? 21st June is the International Yoga Day now. And there are two questions I would ask you. One is about the comeback of yoga, but that's later in the interview. But in your opinion, how's the idea? 21st June is the International Yoga Day now. It's being appropriated by the state also, by the political dispensation. Is it a good idea?
It's a phenomenal idea. It's a phenomenal event on the planet, in the sense, for a long time this has not happened, or you can say in modern history, for the first time, political leadership or heads of nation are talking about the inner well-being of the human being. All these days it's been understood that if they talk about the economics or the military aspects of it or other dimensions of material well-being, that's good enough. For the first time, heads of nations are talking about the inner well-being of a human being. That's a very significant step in the world.
The gross happiness. gross happiness of an individual.
Much more than happiness.
But some would say that, you know, the state or the political dispensation or an ideology is trying to appropriate which belongs to everyone.
How can they appropriate that? It is just that when United Nations declares that there's an International Yoga Day, it's a recognition that this does not belong to any political system or religious beliefs or any sectarian groups. It means that this is a science that needs to be encouraged for the well-being of the human being. As there is a science and technology for external well-being, there is a whole science and technology for inner well-being. And if the state does not encourage that, it simply means that the state is not interested in the well-being of their citizens. I think it's absolutely wonderful that the state is encouraging that. You cannot compel people, but you can always encourage people, you can always campaign.
More than state, I think it's the personal initiative of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
I think the step that he has taken is truly historic and remarkable. The impact of this you will know in the next 10, 15 years' time.
What will be the impact? You have been teaching
One
yoga.
thing is, just look at this. There have been in the past serious, epidemics which are largely controlled today because of modern medicine. There have been serious ailments largely due to nourishment problems on the planet. But look at the most affluent nations in the world, for example, take United States. They have a whole choice of nourishment, but they spend over $3 trillion in healthcare. It could sink a nation. If you have to come out of this, yoga is a significant step, most important step. And you will see in the next 10, 15 years, the rest of the world is hugely grateful to our Prime Minister for taking this step.
Are you saying that yoga can be a cost-effective preventive meditation and medication?
If you want to look at it that way, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like a lifestyle-altering system of belief whereby…
See, it is a way of creating yourself from within. See, as it is, you may be giving raw material in the form of food, but the way you have structured your body has happened from within. What is happening from within must happen the way you want it, both in terms of your physical structure, your psychological patterns, your emotions and the way your energy functions. This must be determined from within. Yoga is the technology for determining that. Look at the little snake on the leaf.
Oh yes, oh yes. You know, you spoke about yoga as…
Three of them. Four of them.
You know, you spoke about yoga as a preventive medication, a lifestyle altering system. But Sadhguru, Prime Minister has come under a lot of attack on this issue. There's a lot of criticism in terms of appropriating it in political narrative and in his sense of nation building.
I think that is simply because there is a segment of population always who is bankrupt both intellectually and otherwise, politically probably, who have to rake up anything that's done. I am not a fan of any particular party or a person, but when something good is done, if you don't appreciate it, then you're not interested in the well-being of the nation or the world.
Tell me one thing. Is yoga about Hinduism? Is it independent of the boundaries of Sanatan Dharma? Does it have a religious cosmology? How do you define yoga as a system of knowledge?
See, yoga predates all religion. Its antiquity goes back to 15 millennia, okay, 15,000 years. There was no idea or a thought about religion at that time. It is something that's come out of a very profound observation of the human system. If yoga is Hindu, gravity must be Jewish. What can you do with such people?
But then the motifs, iconography, I went around Isha Foundation also, appropriates a lot of from Sanatan Dharma.
Like?
For example, Nandi. For example, the statue of Shiva. these icons,
let's handle one at a time.
they are part of the cosmology of Sanatan Dharma.
No, they are part of a pastoral society. India has always been a pastoral society. A cow and a bull plays an important role. And we use this Nandi as a symbolism of alertness and patience. It's an eternal patience, because if one wants to become receptive, this is what is needed. This is what the modern society is missing. In becoming goal-oriented, they're so loaded with expectations, they can't perceive what's happening. They're not even here, their mind is somewhere else all the time. In yoga we say, if your one eye is set on the goal, you have only one eye to find your way. It's a very inefficient way of doing life. So Nandi is a symbolism. He is here fully alert, but waiting with eternal patience. This is a mode that you need to take if you want to perceive dimensions beyond where you are right now.
But then you will not deny that these are motives, symbols of everyday Hindu cultural life. It's not the religious.
Let's understand.
Allow me to use the word cultural.
The word Hindu, no, it's not even a culture is there, of course, but the word Hindu comes from this fundamental. The land between Himalayas and Indus Sagara is referred to as Hindu. The people who lived here developed an enormous sense of gratitude to these two geographical features, because they understood it's only because of the Himalayan ranges and the Indian Ocean that their culture flourished. They lived well without any invasions from outside, without barbarian tribes coming and ravaging them. They knew their well-being is mainly because of these two geographical features. Out of gratitude, they developed a reverence for these two geographical features and called themselves Hindu. Now an earthworm born in this land is a Hindu earthworm, you must understand this. It is like saying an elephant born in Africa is an African elephant. Is it wrong? Is it religious? So, anything that's in this land is Hindu. Now you're calling it India. India doesn't mean anything if you don't know this. It doesn't mean anything, it's just an English word coined by somebody. There is no reference to anything. This is a very dialectical culture where there is a meaning to everybody's name. If you are Kartikeya, there is so much meaning to that name. We don't take names like ding dong bong, okay? Everything has to have a meaning because it's an ancient culture, it's a dialectical culture. Even if you name a dog, you want it to have a meaning. This is the nature of this culture. Anything that is in this land, if you're allergic to it for some reason, hats off to you.
But then how do you take care of the fears expressed by the minorities?
I don't think it's the fears of the minorities, I think it's the fears of a few minority leaders. I don't think the larger community is even bothered about these things. It is just that there are very insecure leaders who can only exist if the community feels insecure. It's very unfortunate that constantly people have been playing politics with their lives. It's time we stop that. In any nation, everything belongs to some culture, right? But anything that belongs to this nation, which we call as Hindustan or Bharat or whatever, you must understand, entire North India, in South India this usage is not there. In North India it's very common to call this country Hindustan. When we say Hindustan, we are not talking about a religious identity, we are talking about a geographical identity.
So you are saying that it's because of the political climate or the politics on the issue of yoga, and not the real. It's not about the real apprehension which minorities have. It's that there are leaders who are trying to politically appropriate it. But yes,
certain leaders.
It's because of the political climate or the politics on the issue of yoga, and not the real. It's not about the real apprehension which minorities have. It's that there are leaders who are trying to politically appropriate it. But yes,
certain leaders, not all of them, a few of them.
Few of them. But then fundamentally, we'll have to accept that yoga in modern time has also acquired a political view.
In what sense?
It becomes part of nation building. A political party has to sponsor it. A nation had to absorb it.
No.
It had to be it had to be recreated through camera, and we are talking about an ancient practice as per you. And we
See-
had to redefine in terms of scientific temper.
No, you need to understand this. This has always been 100% scientific process.
Okay.
It is just that today we have come to this state where we have an ailment within us. Unless something comes from the West, it cannot be science. So, we may try to explain in that context because that's the only language you understand. Otherwise, see people, I'll tell you, some institute wants to test the gamma waves in my brain, okay?
Okay.
I did not even know I have gamma waves. I know I have a working brain. That was good enough for me. They said they want to test. I said, okay. Then they put some 14 electrodes and made me sit down. They said, close your eyes and meditate. I sat down. After some time, they were hitting me with some metallic objects in all those funny places in the joints, like the elbows and knees. It became very painful. Then I opened my eyes and what is the problem? They were giving me a very weird look. I asked, why? Did I do something wrong? They said, no, our instruments are saying you're dead. I said, that's a great diagnosis you have. Then they said, you must be either dead or you must be brain dead. I said that the second opinion I don't want, it's too insulting. I'll take the first one.
Okay.
So I'm saying you're trying to measure the most sophisticated gadget on the planet, which is the human mechanism,
Okay.
with rudimentary stuff that you have created.
Okay.
It is rudimentary compared to this. Because there has been a certain loss of integrity, if a human being says something, he is not to be trusted. It has to be said by an instrument. Simply because you have produced a whole population or huge numbers of people who have no control over their memory nor their imagination. But this is not the kind of people we worked for. Yogic systems produce kind of human beings who are more precise than any modern instrument.
So you're saying that the yoga is a system of knowledge, yoga is a system of belief, yoga
No. Yoga is not a system of belief. Yoga is a science which has evolved various technologies for inner well-being.
Okay.
As there are technologies for external well-being, this is a technology for inner well-being.
Okay.
How it is transmitted? Because it's subjective, it is variable from person to person how he transmits it. But has it worked? You must understand this. In these 15,000 years, the only thing that has lived on this planet is yoga, all right? Only system. And there's never been a papacy or any kind of force in any point in the history. There's not been a situation where somebody put a sword to your throat and said, you must do yoga or you're dead, okay? But it's happened simply because of its efficacy. It's worked, that's the only reason it lives. Today, nearly 2 billion people are practicing some form of yoga. We want to make sure every human being has a touch of yoga. So we are right now propagating various things. 5 minutes yoga, 3 minutes yoga you do. If it works,
You have capsules,
yes,
yoga for
simple, very simple stuff.
work excellence, yoga for
Yes.
personal life.
Yes.
Does it work?
For love, for joy, for happiness, like this. Does it work? If it doesn't work, I must tell you this, Isha Foundation, for the first 21 years of my work, as a rule, I never appeared in the media, never printed a brochure, no advertisement, nothing. Only by word of mouth, millions of people came. So does it work? Obviously it does. Today we're making a lot of noise. One thing is because we want to make this a global phenomena. Another thing is we have huge social projects, ecological projects, medical things and education for which we need support. So we've been making noise for last 11 years. If you heard of me, it's only in the last 11 years. First 21 years, I never moved out of this place. That's it. It's only by word of mouth. Still millions came. Why would they come? Even today, if anybody goes through the fundamental yoga process, they will make sure their family and their friends are there. No promise of miracles, no ticket to heaven, just hardcore stuff about all the problems that you have, the source is yourself. If you want to fix it, we have methods.
So you're saying that it has invited unnecessary controversy just because the Prime Minister has taken the initiative?
Yes, unfortunately, that's become the language of the nation. It's time we understand, whoever we elect, I don't care who you elect, if people elect somebody, next 4.5 years, you must, every citizen in this country must support them absolutely. Last 3 to 4 months, we can do all the politicking. Entire 5 years if you're doing this nonsense, how do you expect this country to get somewhere? It looks like people who have eaten well and who live in cities are not aware there's almost 500 million people who are postponing their dinners on a daily basis, okay? There are almost 600 million people who are malnourished in this country. People don't seem to be aware of these things, or they don't care. They're only interested in barking on the news channels and shouting and saying everything is wrong. The only way the country can go forward as a democracy is, once we have chosen someone, next 4.5 years, just simply support them, every citizen.
You, if I'm not wrong, you met the Prime Minister?
I did.
How was the meeting?
It was a personal and private meeting, it was not for any particular purpose as such. So one thing is, country is foremost in his mind, which I'm very happy with. Another thing is, very hardworking, good. Will he do all the right things? Maybe not, but he wants to do the right things, that itself is a good thing. Another thing is, this is a nation that you can't just by changing a policy. You have to make everything into an emotional movement, otherwise in this country nothing will change. And this is a man who is capable of creating that emotional movement in the nation. And he's changed the perception of India big time in the world. Big time means I'm traveling all over the world. Wherever I go, unknown people come up to me and say, "What do you think about your Prime Minister? Oh, he's a world leader." These things I've never heard. India means…
This is after Narendra Modi becoming the
Yes,
Prime
in the
Minister.
last 6-7 months, it's such a big movement in the world. You know, I happened to meet about it was Robert Kennedy's 25th anniversary, I was there. There were 42 Democratic senators in United States. You won't believe, without exception, each one of them coming up to me and saying, "He's a world leader, you got a great leader going for India." When the whole world is excited, I think as Indians we must stand up and see what we can do. It is not about him, it's not about their party, it's about the country and the people who have not eaten properly for generations. Is there no concern at all?
Tell me one thing, did you discuss yoga with him?
Sort of, because he himself practices a little bit.
What sort of yoga does he practice? Did you get an idea?
He's doing
Because what we see is a couple of photographs and that's about it.
He's doing some simple yoga which keeps him fit and kept him alert. It has both physiologically and psychologically done things for him, so he's sticking to it.
So, did the International Yoga Day, did it come up in your conversation with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
Not really, no.
So what was the meeting about? Because it was tweeted.
I told you it was a personal
Officially.
meeting. I never thought it has to be publicized, but he put it on the tweet, so I had to respond. Otherwise, I would have never talked about it.
But a lot of people say that, he's trying to build,
My
trying to
concern-
pull in a lot of people who have a lot of repute in the world of yoga.
My concern of me wanting to meet him or me meeting him is not about yoga, is about the nation and variety of situations which we can fix and not been fixed for ages. For 6 decades, we have not fixed simple situations that we can easily fix. It doesn't take extra resources, it just takes little extra care. So those are the situations I wanted to bring into his notice, and it was amazing to see that he at least has thought about these things and looking for a solution and how to implement those solutions, which was good.
What part of his conversation with you impressed?
One thing
Impressed
is…
you or was impressive?
One
stuck
thing,
with you?
one thing that's most impressive about him is carrying the responsibility of a complex nation like India in personal interactions. He's a very joyful person, very sharp intellect and a large heart, which is impressive, and that's very necessary for a leader, I feel.
Tell me one thing, in the initial part of the interview you spoke about the West. Isn't it ironical that yoga makes a comeback?
And that's very necessary for a leader, I feel.
Tell me one thing, in the initial part of the interview you spoke about the West. Isn't it ironical that yoga makes a comeback in our subcontinent once it becomes a rage in industry, in America, in Europe, when it acquires a cult following?
See, the thing is, it's not that it's not being practiced in India. It is just that in India we do whatever we do it quietly. In America, whatever they do it with lots of pomp. So people think yoga is happening only in America, that's not true. You go to any village, in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, you travel anywhere, in the remotest village, you will see a bunch of people doing some yoga under a tree, okay? So it's not that in India it completely died out. It died out among the English-speaking population, because their brains are in Greenwich meantime, they're never in India. For them only, from the clothes they wear to the language we speak and everything is essentially what happens outside the country, that's what I'm saying. There is no sense of what reverberates this nation. So yoga has been alive in this country quietly, now here also it's happening with little pomp, but modern days are such, nothing happens without noise. So I'm okay making some noise.
And my last question to you, yoga has seen a lot of redefinition. There are a lot of schools of yoga. You have a lot of practitioners of yoga. Do you think that it needs to be codified? So that the essential true yoga can be differentiated from, many would say, fast science or over innovation of an ancient practice?
See, you must understand this, the yogic system never gave any practices. It only gave a sutra. Sutra means a thread. Right now this is a garland. There is a thread inside. You never wear the garland for the sake of a thread. So what kind of flowers you added in the garland depends on the person, his own competence as to what he adds. So the sutras, can they be distorted? No. The practices may get distorted, they may get commercialized and so many things may happen, which are happening. But I feel we are at a phase in the world where let it happen to everybody. Whatever distorted form, later on corrections can be easily done. Even the most distorted form of yoga that somebody is doing, at least his backache is going, he may not be getting enlightened. But backache is not a small thing. For a man who is suffering backache right now, that's the biggest thing in the universe. So that much relief is there and he thinks that's all it is about. It's unfortunate. It is like if I give an airplane to a local peasant, he will think these two wings are a problem and chop off the wings and put two bullocks onto it and he'll drive. It's a tragedy. But at least he's got something to ride. In a very minimalistic way, but still something to ride. Then tomorrow we can talk to him about attaching wings to it.
So you are saying that the time has not come that we codify it or give a structure to it.
We from the foundation are very, very on it, like that, precise in the sense. That's why none of our teachers will ever be professional teachers. They are all dedicated volunteers. Unless they hold what
That's Isha Foundation.
Yes. Unless they hold what they transmit about their life, more important than their own life, personal life, only then we may allow them to transmit this, because there is no teaching here, it's transmission of a certain dimension. Not everybody else is able to do that. They're professional teachers who will do whatever is needed for the market today. That's okay for now.
Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.